Welcome to the Life You Love podcast.
We're your hosts, Grace Lemire
and Erin Compertini.
This podcast is for the dreamers and the doers.
For the women who want to create a life they genuinely love waking up to.
We believe that life's short, so let's build one we love.
So many people want to increase their income but don't know where to start. Social media also makes us inundated with people starting businesses to increase their income, but it can be hard to block out the noise and choose your path. In this episode, we want to highlight examples of women entrepreneurs who have built businesses online and break down their business model or strategy to help inspire you to move the needle in 2026. We hope you leave this episode realizing that you don't have to want to be an influencer to show up on social media. Once you start viewing it as the marketing arm of your business, you'll be much more inspired to show up and share the things you love. No matter if you have your idea or are just curious on how people are starting their businesses, this episode is for you.
I get so many people, and I'm sure you do too, who say, I want to start a business, but I don't really know where to start or what to do or how to go about it. And I think hearing examples of what other people are doing, even if it's not exactly what you want to do, is a really good way to just kind of like get your brain juices flowing and start to think about it. So I love these kind of episodes. And I know that when we've done similar ones in the past, y'all have also loved it. Like our side hustle episodes and episodes about content creation, we've gotten comments of people saying, it was so helpful just to hear what other people are working on and how they're thinking about things. And hopefully it gives you some ideas regardless of whatever, side hustle you want to build.
Yeah, I love these types of episodes too, because obviously, if you've listened to the podcast before or have been a loyal listener, you hear our stories all the time. And obviously, that can be valuable. But I think sometimes it's hard to only hearing one or two stories kind of apply that to something that could be applicable to you as well. So that's why we want to do episodes like this that are kind of almost like deep diving into other people's niches or strategies or business models, because then, yeah, you can leave this episode being like, wow, I just heard 8 different examples of how this has been possible for other people too. And now I have an idea here or an idea there. So like we said in the intro, even if you don't necessarily have an idea for something that you would want to do, you can maybe leave this episode feeling inspired. But yeah, like we said, we want you to take from this episode that you don't have to be an influencer to want to show up on social media. And this is something that Grace and I have been kind of talking about a lot recently. But, what is the purpose for showing up? Do you want to start posting on social media to share your life and work with brands? Or is there something that you're interested in, like a product or a service that you want to sell, and almost thinking about social media as the marketing arm to get your product or service out there? There are so many people who are posting on social media, not to work with brands, not for people to know every second of their life or know anything about them, but to market the product or service that they want to sell. And obviously that can apply to any niche. So we're super excited to talk about these things in today's episode, but we have a lot of examples here. So we want to get started with them. And again, this is just to get the ideas flowing and kind of talk about different ways that people are monetizing and different niches that people get into and everything like that. So the first one, we wanted to start with this one because you've probably heard of her. If you listen to this podcast, you're probably interested in these niche, and she has millions of followers. So, which again is not the point, but she does have millions of followers because she's been posting for so long. But this is Shelby Sacco. If you have not heard of her, she's the sad to savage girl. She blew up on TikTok for posting her journey going from sad to savage, as she calls it. But it was all about habits and routines. She's very interested in habits and routines and made a ton of content early on about how to build better habits, how to build better routines, and how that has transformed her life. But Shelby, even though she does work with brands from like an influencer perspective, most of her business comes from the business end of it, not from working with brands as an influencer. Shelby, she posted last month that in 2025, she did over $1 million in sales. And again, sales from her business. And over the past couple of years, I've been following her since the beginning, so I can like kind of see her product journey. But she started with paid group coaching. I believe that was like the very first thing that she started with, right when she started posting on TikTok. So she would get these kind of group cohorts of people and coach them to build better habits and routines. Then she started selling physical products. So I believe her habit tracker, which she still sells today. I think she also launched a journal at some point.
And
Her
affirmation cards, I think, too.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes. So some physical products that are lower ticket, and I know her habit trackers sell like crazy, which they are simple, but it's just
Mhm.
kind of the aspect of allowing people to follow along with you in the product that you're using. So yeah, she sells habit trackers, but then last year she launched a course. I'll explain what I mean by this, but she launched a course basically. And I feel like there's certain ways to go about launching a course, and she did it so right. She basically launched this 8-week nutrition and fitness program, but she launched it in conjunction with a nutritionist and a personal trainer. So it wasn't just Shelby putting together 8 weeks of workouts. It was actually bringing in the professionals who know what they're doing and have helped her on her journey to be able to transform people's lives too. The amount of courses that she has sold is crazy. I feel like she posts her results all the time, but like she has done so well. And I feel like that's the right way to go about it. So, all of this to say is if you're interested in a niche, right? Like there are so many different kind of strategies and business models to go off of if you're willing to show up and yeah, promote it on social media.
Yeah, I think she's a good example of it was like a passion, like talking about habits, and she just showed up talking about it. And also to your point that you made earlier, a habit tracker is not a crazy, insane, different, unique product necessarily in itself. There are, of course, elements about all of her products that are unique in the market and therefore make it a better option for people when they're searching for a habit tracker, right? But I think sometimes we assume we have to completely reinvent the wheel in order to be successful. But I think that if you're going to attach your personal brand to it in the same way, for example, with Shelby, how she is the face of her brand in a lot of ways and she is what sells it, she doesn't have to reinvent the wheel entirely. She can just do something that's already out there and do it better or just do it from her own perspective or her own angle. Like in some of her habit videos, she's breaking down the habit loop. She is not the creator of the habit loop, right? Maybe she read Atomic Habits or any of those types of habit books, right? Learning about the habit loop is something that anyone could do, but it's the way that she conveys the habit loop, the intonation, the spirit and excitement that she talks about it with, her personality that she shows through all of her other content that creates such a magnetic brand that people then want to buy whatever she sells. And so I think sometimes when we're thinking about creating a business, we feel like we must reinvent the wheel. Even think about, I love this analogy. If you go into the bread aisle at your grocery store, there are a million options, and yet you still probably navigate towards one. You're like, I like my Wonder Bread, or oh, I like my gluten free bread, or whatever it might be. It's because you like that bread. It does not mean all the other bread is bad. If there was one brand that created bread, right, and then all the other brands said, well, someone already made bread, so I'm not going to make bread, we'd have one bread option at the store. And yet there's an option for everyone. So it's like you don't have to reinvent how bread is made in order to make a good bread. You can just make a bread that is a little bit different and maybe the marketing is different, whatever it might be. And the same is true for products. I'm not saying that her products are obviously not valuable. I'm saying her products are very valuable and that she's marketed them like an expert. But the topic of habits and routines is not like a new topic, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, even think about it with our budget templates. Grace and
Mm-hmm.
I both sell a budget template, and it's not a unique idea. You can go
No.
into Etsy and search budget template, and there's a million budget
Mm-hmm.
templates on Etsy. However, the reason why someone would buy Grace's over mine or mine over Grace's is the exact same reason. It's because the video that we made to market the budget template, we're using a different tone. We are conveying the value proposition different. The functionality of our templates does vary slightly because we have different budgeting methodologies to some extent. Like there
Mm-hmm.
are these slight differences that is going to make someone choose product A over product B, but your product in and of itself doesn't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to be consistent and be like on brand with how you market it. I think about this all the time too with there's a creator and I don't know her name, but she basically sells these like planner, these like weekly and monthly calendar things that you like stick it to your fridge almost. It's like a
Okay.
magnet and it's like kind of big and you like put it on your fridge and then you can write it's like our month or whatever.
Okay.
And she sells them on Amazon. And so Amazon like ships them and does the fulfillment or what I've
Mhm.
never sold a product on Amazon, so I don't know like the ins and outs of it. But it's like that's also not a unique idea.
No.
Like a little calendar view that you stick onto your fridge is not a unique idea. There's a million of them on Amazon. But if you are willing to put your face to camera on social media and start building a little bit of a following or just getting some views around the whole like planner aesthetic, planner girl, people are going to follow along and they're going to see your product and be like, oh my gosh, I could also use that. I could stick that on my fridge and see.
Yeah, and I think this is all to say because I've definitely done this before and I see people do it too. If you're excited about a business idea and you're passionate about it, don't disqualify it before you even try because someone else is doing something that is similar or because you feel like the topic is not enough. We were just having a conversation about this before we came on the podcast, and I'm not going to get into the details, but I was talking about how I was doing something similar with an idea that I have. And I'm like, well, it's kind of similar to everything else. And I actually was telling Erin that I was in therapy yesterday, and my therapist, I was like, why would anyone care if, like what makes this different from any of these other similar personal development companies? That's as deep as I'll go. But I'm like, what makes it different than any of that? And my therapist was like, because it's you. And then we started talking about how, like, why do I keep working with her over the prior like 4 therapists I had gone to? Because I like her. I like how she guides me through asking me questions, the results I get working with her, whatever. I resonate the most with her. Are there probably a million other like qualified therapists? Yes, but I like her. So I want to work with her. She could do anything. And I'd be like, yeah, I'll buy it. She could charge me $5,000 a session. I would say, I will find it, the money in my budget, right? Like that's just part of it. So don't disqualify your own idea because, oh yeah, somebody has already made bread, so I'm not going to make bread. Like, no, figure out how can I make a bread brand if you're really passionate about bread. How can I make a bread brand that like people want to buy from? How can I get on social media and talk about bread in such an exciting way that people are like, oh my gosh, I just like this girl. And you know what? I want to buy her bread because she is passionate about bread. That's what people do. If you look at any of these like magnetic brands and what they're selling, they're not reinventing the wheel entirely. It's just like Pepsi and Coke. Like they're very similar, but some people are like ride or die for Pepsi or ride or die for Coke. Okay, let's go to our next person. And this is someone that I am really excited about because she's one of my very, very good friends, actually. And this is Kate Robb. We actually had her on the podcast. I feel like you remember when every
It
single
was
episode
well over a
was.
year ago. I think it was
Okay.
last fall. So maybe we'll find that episode. We don't have the number off the top of our head and we'll put it in the show notes of this
Okay.
episode.
Yeah. If you type into on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, like Kate Robb, it should show up some of the podcast interviews that she's done. But she is like such a cool story to me. So Kate started her own print on demand and digital download Etsy stores. And she taught herself like everything that she knows. And then she grew them into successful shops. And I think Kate and I met through social media like probably 2 years ago at this point. It was a while back. And she had reached out to me and was just like, I feel like, we're doing similar things, or like, I love your content. I'd love to connect. And I was like, sure, why not? And we hopped on a call. And at that point in time, Kate had, I think, just started posting on social media. And she was telling me about the Etsy shops that she had created and what she was doing with them. And I was like, that is so cool. And she's like, I would just like to talk about it on social media. So she did. She started just filming these videos, and her style is similar today. She just talks to the camera and teaches people about how to build Etsy print on demand and digital download shops. And in that first conversation we had, I remember telling Kate, I was like, get an email in your bio. Like, put an email in your bio because brands like might want to work with you because this is such a niche thing. You can see her passion come through in all of her videos. Now, after just starting for fun and then being like, yeah, I'll put my email in my bio, she still has her shops, but she is basically, she's a full-time content creator and Etsy seller. And now she works with brands on a consistent basis and she's making revenue there. And she also has a course. She turned everything that she knows about how to launch an Etsy shop into a course. Again, she was like self-taught. Like she figured out how to do all of this on her own. And people who are in her program get so much value. I've literally thought about buying it myself because I'm like, she makes it seem so possible because of the amount of knowledge she has and the support that she gives people and how like high touch her course is. But yet she's still so relatable. And like, it's been such a cool thing to watch. But I think with Kate, the point that I want to make is that she took something that she taught herself how to do and had a real passion for. And she just started sharing it on social media as like sort of a passion project, if you will, almost. And then I encouraged her, like, hey, yeah, start to monetize this. Like, there are totally ways you can do that. And just by being passionate about it and being committed, and Kate is one of the most consistent, committed people that I know. Like, I swear she posts a video every single day. She does not miss a day. Like, she is always in there. Now it's grown. Like now I don't even know how many followers she has on her platforms at this point, but it's grown. She launched a podcast for educational creators, but it's like it all started with taking something that she's passionate about in her daily life and just showing up and talking about it. And I think it's a good example for people who might want to do the same.
I'm so glad we're talking about Etsy too, because I feel like this is a question that I get all the time when I talk about selling my budget template and kind of the behind the scenes of that. People will say, well, do I have to post it on social media or can I just list it on Etsy? Etsy is another medium for marketing your business. However, I feel like when people hear of Etsy, they think, okay, well, I'm just going to launch a product and post it on Etsy and the sales are going to start coming in. I actually did list my budget template on Etsy the very first year that I created it. I think to this day, I might have gotten like 2 sales. You have to really know what you're doing on
Hmm.
Etsy in order. It's a lot of SEO and it's a lot of yeah, making sure your product is ranking over other budget templates that people are selling because again, like no product is really unique in 2026. Like yes, there's differences,
Hmm.
but no product is really unique. There's a million budget templates on Etsy. The reason why people buy my template is because I'm putting my face to the camera and clearly articulating the value proposition for why this budget template works for me and why it can work for you too. So I feel like that is a really big misconception. It's like, okay, well, do I have to start talking about my product on socials or can I just list it somewhere and people will start to buy it? It's not really that simple. The product itself is very important, but I feel like if you ask any business owner, no matter what they're selling, whether it be an app, a clothing line, the product is important, but the marketing of it is more important. So, with this example with Kate, she did become really successful with Etsy and still to this day is very successful with Etsy. But now, a big part of her business too is not just being an Etsy seller and selling the products that she does, but she's helping people do the same based on what she's learned. And I mean, you're a really good example with this too, with your freelancing course
Hmm.
because you've been freelancing for so long. You've taught yourself everything that you know. It was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of, yeah, like building relationships with clients. There was so much that goes into it that if someone just getting started, they would have to go through all of those learning curves too. But instead of going through all of those learning curves, you're like, I packaged everything that I know into a course and you can skip that whole learning curve and just buy
Hmm.
my course. And that provides so much value to people.
Yeah. Kate and I have talked about this a lot. And with Etsy, you can put products out there that will sell. However, that's where you have to create something that is really different and has significant edge over the competition. Or, Kate talks a lot about you want to find niches on Etsy that have a higher search volume and low competition, meaning a lot of people are searching for things, but there's not a lot of products that give that customer choice. So if someone types in, market themed bachelorette party and they're looking for, custom sweatshirts and decor and whatever for their market themed bachelorette party, and there's 1,000 people searching for that every month and there's only 60 results, well, that's a really great product, for you to step into because there's a lot of demand and not a lot of options for people. But that's the thing, right? So going back to the bread example, if you're selling bread, okay, how are we marketing and making bread unique in a search? We have to find, again, very niche things like gluten free, rosemary, sea salt, sourdough. You know what I mean? That has to be niche things. And you have to really keep up with that. So, yeah, putting a budget template up on Etsy, it's like, unless that budget template is revolutionary, it's probably not going to just like fly off the shelves. And that's where the personal branding comes into play. If you want to speak to a extremely niche audience, of course, having a personal brand attached to it helps immensely. But you might do okay in search if you have a super niche thing when there's someone searching for it. But the personal brand is what can push, quite frankly, generic product like our budget templates. Like we didn't reinvent the wheel with our budget templates. They're both great, but are they like anything revolutionary, show stopping, earth shattering? No, they're not. But it's our personal brands attached to it that sell it. The other thing I want to say is that with Kate and courses allow people to collapse time. And I know courses have like a bad rap kind of on social media because I think what happened was, what was it called? MRR or something course that like took
Oh,
over the internet at
yeah.
one point, where it was like master resale rights, where people would sell a course and the course was all about how to resell that course to make money. So then you just invested like $500 and now you're like, okay, in order for me to make the money back from the course, I have to take this course and go resell it. And it was just like, it became like an MLM or something of that sort. And I think that gave a bad rap for courses. But the way that Kate and I have looked at it is that courses allow you to collapse time. So instead of floundering around for 2 years like I did, learning everything that I did, having issues with my taxes, issues with like contracts, all these things, I collapse time. I bring in, my accountant for a module. I, share different things that I've learned, how I invoice, the tools that I've used. So you don't have to go and spend time testing multiple tools, figuring out what you need to do for your taxes. It makes time shorter. And I think that with Kate's in particular, obviously with both my freelancing course and Kate's Etsy, business course, it appeals to people's desire to like make more money and to have more freedom and build a business. And so that gives edge. However, Kate's course is also fairly niche. The idea of creating an Etsy business specifically is niche. And that's like one point that I want to make. It is a niche thing. It is not like Kate is teaching a course on, I don't know, like how to be happy. Although honestly, that would probably sell well because people want to be happy. It's a fundamental need as human beings, but like it's a niche topic. There are people who sell courses on how to get rid of wrinkles naturally by doing facial massage. I've seen courses on fascia release. I've seen courses on posture, right? Those are unique niche things. And I think sometimes kind of the flip side of what we were saying with our last section talking about Shelby of like, don't disqualify an idea because you think it's not unique enough. Don't disqualify an idea because you think it's too unique or niche. There are people out there. Remember, there are 8 billion people on the planet, right? If you think something is interesting, statistically speaking, there has to be people on the planet who also think it's interesting too. There are far too many people on the planet for your interests and desires to be that like unique where there's nobody else who also likes what you like. So think about it that way too. And also, those might be spaces where it's less served. One thing that works well for Kate is that there are some other Etsy creators, but not that many. And Kate is also very transparent. She's direct. She's to the point. She tells people like it is. She doesn't promise that you're going to make 10K in your first month because that's literally just lying to your face. You're not going to make 10K in your first month on Etsy. That's not realistic. She's realistic. That's what sells her program on a niche thing. So people are willing to pay what they do for it because it's niche and they like Kate and they're buying into her personal brand.
Yeah, I feel like I have so much to say here. I am glad we're talking about the concept of niching down and niches in general because I think this is something that trips a lot of people up. They either think, yes, you have to create something that's too broad, but then it's like everything else. And why would I create it? Because there's a million other things out there. Or you think, oh my gosh, this is too niche. Like, why would anybody care? But just remember that you don't have to have a lot of buyers to make a significant amount of money. If you sell a $10 product and you get 1,000 buyers, that's $10,000. If you sell a $100 product and get 1,000 buyers, that's $100,000. 1,000 people who are interested in the same thing that you are interested in is so insignificant when you think about the fact that there's 8 billion people in the world. A
Mm-hmm.
thousand people. That is
Yeah.
so insignificant. Even to the fact, like, because again, we're talking about using social media to promote your business and be the marketing arm of your business. If you post consistently for a year, do you know how many views you're going to get in a year to convert to 1,000 buyers? You are going to get like, and obviously views aren't guaranteed, but
Mm-hmm.
you could easily get millions of views in a year to convert 1,000 buyers. So yeah, I think that's like such a good conversation around, nothing is too niche. And in fact, the more niche you get, the more unique your product is going to end up being, and therefore it could end up selling a lot better.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think one quick thing before we go to the next person too on this, like, I'm such a numbers person and I think it's helpful to view it like this. Think about like, let's say you want to make $5,000 and you sell a $200 course. Back yourself out how many people you would need to sell to. For example, I'm in like a business coaching program and a lot of the women in the program are coaches and they sell high ticket. They sell two, three, four, $5,000 programs. If their goal is to make $10,000 a month, they need to sell two $5,000 programs. You don't need millions of views to sell two products, right? You could literally have 100 people watch your videos and you just have to worry about converting two. And my business coach herself is a great example of this. And she talks about this publicly. So this is not like me being like exposing her, whatever. But her content, she has, I think, less than 15,000 followers on Instagram. Her content will get a few hundred views, sometimes a few thousand views, but she's not going madly viral. She's not making, getting millions and millions of views. But she shows up as herself and her brand, and it's magnetic, and she speaks exactly to the person that she wants to buy her programs. She sells high ticket programs. So she literally, I think last year she ended, which I think she has put out in public also, this is not like me revealing anything. She closed the year, I believe, making $1 million in cash. And I don't mean sales. I don't mean that she sold, because she has like programs that are like monthly. I don't mean that she sold a package to where she is going to get paid for some of it in 2026. No, cash collected that hit her account, $1 million with less than 15,000 followers, because she speaks to a very specific audience and sells a high ticket program. Of course, if you want to sell something low ticket, you need volume. If you want to sell something high ticket, no, you don't need volume. You're just needing conversion for people, for a small batch of people. So when I ran a cohort program last year, which I don't have any intention of running again, I wanted to see if I enjoyed that process, and there are certain things I liked about it, certain things I didn't. But I sold each spot for $797. It was a 6-week program, and I think I sold like 8 or 9. So I made roughly 7,000. That's $7,000, right? From like 9 people. So it doesn't matter that I have 125,000 followers on my TikTok. None of that mattered. I sold to 9 people. I could not have possibly sold to everybody there. So if I sat there being so concerned about the views, and like, you know what I mean? So if you're posting a video talking to a niche audience and your videos are getting 100 views, don't be discouraged. Think about, am I speaking? Are those 100 people that I want to be speaking to? And I think that takes some pressure off, because you don't have to be so worried about how it's being perceived or how it's necessarily performing. It's just, am I talking to the people that are going to buy from me?
I love that so much. And the next one that I want to talk about, we're kind of switching gears here a little bit because I feel like we started talking a lot about like higher ticket stuff. And if you're listening to this being overwhelmed by that, being like, oh my gosh, what can I create that I can charge people $4,000 for? That is so not the point. We want you to leave this episode feeling like there are so many different ways that you can go about selling a product or a service, like either one. A business is a product or a service, and you can decide like what business model works for you. But like depending on what you're interested in. But the next person that I want to talk about is actually someone that I've worked with one-on-one before. I've hired her to basically be my content coach. And she's done a lot of one-on-one coaching. Again, I've worked with her a couple different times on the content coaching sphere. But in 2025, she released a monthly membership community, basically where people get into her container and they pay, I think it's still $25 a month. It was $25 a month when I joined because I joined it right when she launched it. And I'm pretty sure the price is still the same, but don't quote me on that. Her name is Tess Barclay and her business name is Busy Blooming. So if you search either of those on YouTube or TikTok, you'll find her. Basically, she's been posting content for years and years. She started in the social media marketing space, kind of on like the brand side. So helping people in like social media marketing if they have like a corporate job or whatever it may be. But then she kind of transitioned into more so helping content creators grow. And she transitioned from making a lot of money doing one-on-one coaching. And she's talked about this publicly before too, to where she stopped doing one-on-one coaching and lost a lot of revenue because she needed like 6 months to get her monthly membership community off the ground. And again, it's a container where people can come into her ecosystem, pay $25 a month in monthly recurring revenue, and she provides a certain amount of value for that $25 a month. And why this kind of business model or strategy is so interesting to me is because when you think about, okay, how much value do I need to provide to someone to get $25 worth, like for them to pay $25 a month, right? $25 a month is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, especially because she's in a space where people are doing this as a business. So it's a tax write off. Like, frankly, I pay for it and I never log on and I still pay for it monthly every single month. I'll get like, she sends some things like as emails or push notifications. So I will get like some type of value, but like I'm not a super active member of the community. And I still feel like I get $25 a month out of value from it, right? But all of this is to say, like, if you can build something that provides someone $25 per month worth of value, they will stick around. For example, the one thing that I get out of value without even really engaging or being an active member of the community is once a week she sends a PowerPoint presentation of 10 content ideas. That alone is worth $25 a month to me. 10 content
Mhm.
ideas per week for a content creator. So again, all of this is to say, like, you don't have to go build this gigantic course if you feel like you're not qualified for it or you feel like nobody would buy it or whatever it may be. There are so many options for you to build something that is lower ticket and still get the volume to make it a substantial business. Because if you think about it, $25 a month, if 500 people are inside of that community, that is $12,500 per month in monthly recurring revenue. And obviously, you're going to have some churn and some people are going to leave. But realistically, by the time you kind of get this up and running, the amount of people that are going to leave monthly is probably going to equal out the number of people that are joining monthly. So that is a very, very viable business opportunity for you.
One of my freelance clients, I'm trying to see if I can do the math on how what this person had, but we did this piece on different content creators and how they were monetizing. And what's interesting is some of them were larger content creators, but some of them were content creators that had literally 3,000 followers on their Instagram and created a private community like that. And so I was tasked with figuring out what they offered and how much they were charging. And like we did an estimation of how much they were making. And there was a fitness content creator. And I don't know if his brand, if he still does it or not, but his brand was all around like kind of being shredded like an anime character. And he would share these like workouts that were just like how he got shredded. That's literally what his thing was. He did have a very large platform, this guy in particular. But at one point, I think he was charging $75 a month for his program or for his community, but they got like weekly meal plans, weekly workouts. There was like, people in it, whatever. But when you think about the alternative for someone who's desiring what is in that program, if you're going to work one on one with a nutritionist or a dietitian to get weekly meal plans, to get weekly workouts from a personal trainer, even your gym membership. And this, I'm pretty sure all this stuff, I don't know if it was like no gym, like, it was like at home workouts type of thing. It's going to cost you more than $75. So logically, you're like, yeah, if I want all those things, that's an absolute steal. And I get to get mentored by this person that I really like. And I remember doing the math at one point on it, and he was making, assuming on this platform, you could see like how many members there were in there and what they charge per month. Some people might have had introductory pricing or discounted pricing. So it was just doing the math based on the numbers that were visible from the outside. But at the time, I remember he was making about $300,000 per month because it's a fee. I think it was $75 or $79, somewhere around there. And I was just trying to do the math on my phone to see what the numbers would check out to, because I remember when I did the math, it was like $300,000 per month. And I remember sitting there thinking, where have I gone wrong? Like, I was like, hold on a second. Like, I think an episode a long time ago, when we did a similar episode like this, there was another one that I looked at where this man had built a dog poop scooping business in his community. And I forget what it was even called, but it had like some like silly name. And he had started sharing it on social media about his poop scooping business and how like it was actually very lucrative, because who the heck wants to be out scooping poop? But like if you have a dog, you're kind of desensitized to it, You're like, yeah, I pick up poop, it's no big deal, whatever. So he made a community teaching people how to start and grow their own poop scooping business. And this man was cashing out. I don't even remember what he was making, but I remember doing the math and it was up there, like in like the tens of thousands of dollars a month from his community around how to create and grow a poop scooping business. So all this to say, the community model is really interesting. And again, depending on how many people you're trying to reach, like even if you were doing this like boots on the ground in your local community, like let's say you wanted to create a paid community for, I don't know, like moms in your area, and you'd have to figure out what your like, specific thing you're teaching them is, whatever. You can connect to those people in person too. You obviously using social media is like what we're kind of talking about here, but there's other ways to connect with people, or it's just you have to think a little outside of the box. But this community model is so interesting because it's like, yeah, absolutely. I'd pay $75 a month. Like if I'm trying to build a poop scooping business, I don't think I'm going to experiment on my own. I think, yeah, I'll pay the $75 a month to have a mentor who's built a really successful company and be surrounded by people in other markets who are also learning and sharing. Like, that is a steal of a price when you think about, in a business sense, the potential ROI that you're going to get from paying that monthly amount. Like you said, how much does $25 a month reduce your stress because you're getting content ideas, or boost your creativity because of those content ideas, or the peace of mind that you get knowing that if you have a question, you can go in there and post it and you have someone there for you? Like, you have to think about it in that way too. So don't knock the community, the paid community approach, because it can
Yeah.
be extremely, extremely lucrative.
Well, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, but in 2025, we have played around with the whole membership community for the podcast ecosystem. And where that idea came from was I feel like we started to get more comments on Spotify and DMs on Instagram that were kind of craving that community feel for entrepreneurial women who want to increase their income, who want to start their business. And we even sent out a survey in 2025, like kind of asking people what they would be looking for. And the reason why we didn't take action on that in 2025 was because we felt like we didn't really have a clear, like, okay, who is this exactly for and what is the exact value proposition? Like, if we're launching this, we want to give you guys value and we want to make sure that the value is specifically for the people that are joining it. We felt like we didn't get a lot of clarity on that from like the surveys that we were filling out and stuff. So all of that is to say, if you would be interested in something like that, if you're like, no, I want to connect with more people who are in a similar mindset as me, who are entrepreneurial, who will take action, and I want to hear from you guys in a more intimate setting, definitely let us know on Spotify and let us know if you have any ideas for that because we've been playing around with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Next person on the list. This is someone that I was trying to find a good example of a wedding content creator. And so I don't know this person personally, but I was kind of looking around in the area in Tampa and trying to find someone who I think does a really good job at this. And I wanted to share the idea of a wedding content creator because I see this becoming more popular where people are like, I really enjoy creating content, but I don't necessarily want to be the one who's on camera all the time. And I don't necessarily want to create a brand to where people are expecting to hear about my life, or where I have to be, you know, marketing a physical product or talking about a product. I kind of want to create really cool work that kind of speaks for itself. And I know this idea of wedding content creation and event content creation in general is becoming increasingly more popular. So there's a girl in the Tampa area. I think her Instagram, or maybe her whole business name is Kim.weddings, but you can also just search online like wedding content creator in your city and you'll probably see a lot of them. I have a couple friends in the area, actually. I have two friends who actually have wedding and event content creation businesses. But I found Kim's because I found her pricing online to give people an idea. So her pricing starts at $1,000 for 4 hours of coverage, which nets out to $250 an hour before expenses and taxes and things. That is an amount of money. When you get into entrepreneurship, obviously you're like, you want to see $1,000 for 1 hour of work. You want to start seeing like more and more and more, of course, right? But when we think about comparing this against a full-time job, of course she has to go home and then edit all of that content, right? So let's just say it ends up netting out to roughly $100 an hour. That is more than you're going to be paid in most 9 to 5 jobs. And it's flexible because she can decide whether she wants to be there or not, how many clients she wants to take on. Of course, there's other levels to it because you're running a business. But that was really fascinating. A lot of people don't put their pricing out publicly, which I totally understand and respect because like every package is going to be different and I don't have my like pricing available. But it was interesting to see like that's what her base package, that's the base. She has ones for 6 hours of coverage and 8 hours of coverage. And I'm sure she has add-ons for like if you want her to travel to things, or if you want her to, I don't know, be there extremely early. I don't know what she would charge extra for. I would charge extra to be there extremely early. But like those kinds of things, it's really interesting to think about. And if you are thinking about this in terms of a side hustle, let's say she takes on 2 weddings a month and makes an extra $2,000. Or let's say with the add-ons, it ends up being $3,000 between the two of them. That's a decent side hustle for, not an insane amount of work or insane amount of hours. And I think it's a really good example of how people are stepping into the world of content creation to create a business and leveraging social media in a way that doesn't require like your face being the main part of it. And this service in general is just becoming so much more popular because a lot of people can't afford professional photographers anymore, which is a whole thing. And so they're like, you know what, just bring the iPhone, and like, or they're hiring a photographer that is maybe, their friend's cousin's uncle who has a nice Canon and is just taking photos. And then they have a content creator. But people are also hiring wedding content creators specifically because they don't want to wait for the professional photos to come back because they take so long to be edited. They want to see some of the content right away. And people are social media obsessed. So a lot of times they're like, yeah, I just want to be posting on my story all day the day of my wedding and I want someone to handle that. Cool. Like, but also with events. My friend and I were talking about this, and I was talking about this with who was I talking to? I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I was saying how with so many things, people are discovering things more and more on social media. They're going into TikTok to search for health and wellness event in Tampa, or my injector and I were talking about how people will search injector Tampa and like they'll see, do you have an Instagram? Do you not? So businesses are being forced to kind of step into this space where they also have to be able to document and share their events and document and share their work, but they don't necessarily like my injector and I were talking about it. And she's like, yeah, at the end of the day, like the last thing I want to do is edit a video, or the last thing I want to do the day I went to see her was like her last day before maternity leave. So she was like very much pregnant. She's like, yeah, I don't want to film a TikTok actually. Like, I'm like, and that's so fair. I don't think I would want to either if all day I'm working, I'm being hands on all day. Or I filmed at an ice cream shop the other day. At the end of the day, they do their own content. But it's like when they're at an event, they're trying to capture content and serve ice cream and do all of the things. Like it's not the easiest thing. So I think this idea of like content creation for events and weddings and things is such a cool idea. And it also seems really profitable.
I will totally be hiring a wedding content creator for the day
Same.
of my wedding because
Same.
there's no chance I'm gonna be, like, thinking of a TikTok trending audio to post in my wedding dress, like, absolutely not.
No.
I want someone
And I
to
want
prop
cutesy
up the
little videos.
Yeah, I want someone to prop up the tripod and say, "Erin, like, do this little transition," and then edit it for me at the end of the day, so I will
Mhm.
totally be hiring one, but I think this is applicable to so many industries. My friend, she has a full-time job in sales for restaurant marketing. So their company does like restaurant marketing services, right? And her job is to sell the marketing services to restaurants. So restaurant owners are her clients. And one of her like clients reached out to her and was like, I am looking for someone to run my social media. Would you be interested? So she got a contractor position or a freelance position as the social media manager for this restaurant. And sometimes I'll go with her to the restaurant and we'll like eat food and she'll be filming Instagram reels and then she'll edit them and post them. But since then, she just started that 2 months ago. And since then, she's gotten two more clients because it just snowballs from there.
Mhm.
People start to see your work. They're like, wait, actually, I also need Instagram reels for my restaurant because restaurants, if you think about it, I think years ago, it was very common to just see a restaurant have an Instagram page that's just some like stock footage of their food almost. But now people want to see what the vibe looks like in the
Yeah.
restaurant. They want to see, hey, I'm going to dinner with my friends. Is this a cute like bar scene at the restaurant where my friends and I can go sit at the bar and have a drink? Or is it a cute vibe? What does the food look like? And people are looking for reels to showcase that. It's such an in demand no matter whether it's an event
Yes.
or a wedding or a restaurant,
Yeah.
the demand is there.
And I talked about this, I think, in I think it was an Instagram video or a TikTok video. And I went more in depth on this idea. But people will say, well, how would I charge a restaurant 1,500 or 2,000 or $2,500 a month for a package? Like they're a local restaurant. And it's like, here's the thing. In order for a restaurant to survive, they need people in there eating food, right? Ideally, they're packed every day. Ideally, every table is full and they're making lots of money and they're selling lots of food, right? Let's say, just for like easy numbers, let's say that restaurant is making $10,000 a month, which I don't think they'd be in a good spot trying to run payroll and pay for inventory. But let's say they're making $10,000 a month. If they pay you $2,000 a month to run their social media, and that starts to make it searchable on TikTok, it starts to bring in more people. People are now visiting. Now, think about the amount when you go to dinner with your friends. Let's say you have $100 bill. Think about all the tables around you and how many people are being served and the amount of money a restaurant can make in one night. They could literally make back what they just paid you in one night if you were able to bring customers into their business through the content. So it's not, people think, oh my gosh, it's so much money. How do you charge people for that? I'm like, because there's an ROI. And then you think about it. If this is a restaurant that then, people enjoy, right? Let's say you post the content, it brings new people in, they come and eat. They enjoy that meal. The business makes money. The business has now made enough money to cover what they paid you. And, for a month's worth of content, right? The lifetime value of that customer is not just the amount of value they generated that business in that night. Because if you like a restaurant, you're likely going to come back. So now, not only did that business, let's say, make $100 off that person's bill for easy numbers in that one night, but they might come back next month and pay $100. So now the $2,000 they paid you in January to do their social media has generated them $200, $100 that month and $100 the next time that person has come back. And that's just one person that was brought into the restaurant. So like, you have to think about it in that way too. And when you start to see the value, it makes a lot of sense. So it's like, yeah, this is actually very, very important for a business to thrive, to have successful social media, to be able to bring people in. So I also see people kind of like disqualify themselves. A lot of disqualification happening here, as you can, this is the theme throughout this conversation. But like, I see a lot of people disqualify themselves and think, well, no, like, I've never really done social media management before. How could I pitch someone on $1,500 a month for social media management? It's like, you need to get 15 new people in at $100 a meal, and then they've made their money back on you. I don't know. I think there's a lot of value to be exchanged there. And I think it's really meaningful. And I think if you're interested in it, I think you should go for it because it's profitable. It makes sense for businesses. And yeah, it's just very much needed.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love this conversation. We have two more to get through. This one I feel like is a little self explanatory. We don't have to spend too much time on it, but it is creators that have built their platform on basically Excel tips. The one that I have here for the example is her handle is Miss Excel. I don't know if there's any like dots or anything, but I'm sure if you search Miss Excel, it'll come up. She has millions of followers at this point. She's been doing it for so long, but she built her platform literally posting Excel tips. Like she was very good at Excel and started posting Excel tips and built this huge platform literally by posting Excel tips. And I feel like this is a good example of if you have a skill, there are other people that want to learn that skill, even if it is a quote unquote boring skill. Like, for example, if you code. Okay, well, obviously, I don't code, so I don't know if you can show that in a video, but
You
like
can.
teaching people like, okay, this is the website that I use to go code. This is the like what blah blah blah. Like there are so many things that you can teach people in a video about a quote unquote boring topic like Excel. And Miss Excel does so well on her mainly courses. I know she has both actually I don't necessarily know her like price point on her courses, but to market her courses, I know she does both live webinars and then also evergreen recorded webinars. And that's like a typical marketing strategy for courses. I know you do the same on your
Mhm.
freelance course, but people will host these webinars. So again, either she's doing them live or she has them pre-recorded and people can watch the webinar at any time. And then at the end of the webinar, they're like, oh, if you want to learn even more, I have this course. So people are getting some free value from the webinar. And then ideally you're converting customers at the end of the webinar because people want to learn more. And this example specifically, I think is a really good one because it kind of ties back to the increasing your income piece. Like a lot of people do want to learn Excel so that they can either get a new job or they want to be better at their job so that they can get promoted. So it's just kind of that, yeah, a good example of it can be a boring topic and you can still build a huge platform around it or just make it into a very lucrative business.
Because boring is subjective, Guys, think about the fact that I like to juggle. Like, what the I'm literally looking at my juggling balls across my living room. Like, I would watch a juggling tutorial, you know what I mean? A lot of people wouldn't. They'd be like, "What is this?" I would. Like, to some people, that's, like, boring. Or I think about people who talk about plants and, like, I really don't care if my plants live or die. I have one that like I am really proud of her. It's like on a shelf and there's like my built-in desk is under it and the vine has grown so long that the vine is now touching the little built-in desk at the bottom. So very proud of it. I'm actually gonna have to trim it. And when you put the stem like in the water, I don't know what that's called, but you like put it into the water so that it grows more roots. Yeah. I'm very proud of it. However, like I'm not going to watch like a plant tutorial of how to keep it alive. I don't care if it starts to look dead and I'm watering it and it's not living, it's going. Like I just don't care. But there are people who like I find that kind of thing boring. Like I just it's not of interest to me. But there are people who love plants and they want to like learn all about it and whatever. Like what is boring and what isn't is so subjective. But again, it goes back to the point before about there being 8 billion people on the planet. There are too many people on this planet to truly have like a unique experience that no one else has ever experienced. Hello? Statistically, it does not make sense to me. So if you think something is interesting, there's got to be people who think it's interesting too. And if you're showing up on social media and you're talking about it, the algorithm is going to try to feed that content to people who think it is interesting. Like there is a community for everything.
Yes, definitely. Okay, let's talk about the last one. And this is a friend of both Grace and I. It's one of my like very best friends, and we've had her on the podcast now twice. So if you've been listening for a while, you've probably listened to her episodes. But her handle on Instagram is dietitian.gabrielle. And she's a registered dietitian. And this is in the health space. So I do want to make the caveat of like, if you're going to do something in the health space, make sure you're qualified. There's a lot of people on online that
Mhm.
just like really don't have any certifications or anything in this space, but she does. She is a registered dietitian, and I've known Gabrielle since right out of college when she was working at a hospital as a registered dietitian, but it was always her goal to open her own private practice. And she would always speak of it as like, oh, it's so far away. Like, I'm going to have to work in the hospital for a really long time before I do that, but I really want to have my own private practice. And private practice meaning seeing clients one on one and helping them with their diet as a dietitian, right? But then at the same time, I started on social media in the finance space, and she really got inspired by that and decided to start a social media channel about being a registered dietitian and helping people with nutrition and all of that. And now she's been able to quit her hospital job and now has her own private practice because she's getting clients through social media and she's working with them remotely. Telehealth is so big now. And obviously, I don't know exactly how the licenses work, but I think she can only work with people in certain states because of like where her licenses are. But still, she's been able to quit her job and have her own private practice because she was willing to put her face to the camera and start getting clients through social media. And she also has some like if you can't afford to work with her or you don't feel like you need one-on-one help, she does have some other like lower ticket offerings. She sells her whole thing is fiber and gut health.
She
And so
calls
she
herself like a
sells
fiber freak or a fiber
yeah.
fairy. I love
She's so
Gabrielle.
funny. She's so funny. But she sells a fiber guide. So it's like $10 one time. And it just gives you a ton of information on fiber and the importance of it in your body and how to get enough fiber every single day. And then she also has a paid monthly membership community for people to be able to, I think it's like a live call every so often where people can go on and ask questions, and she gives like that kind of advice in that container. But I think that this is a really good example of, yeah, if you have a specialized skill, you can take it to social media and start getting your clients that way.
There are so many people that do similar things to this. I actually know another dietitian, which this is so interesting to me because she is so successful, but yet it's so niche. She is a dietitian for gymnasts because she is a
Mhm.
former D1 gymnast. And she just knew that how you fuel your body as a gymnast is so important. And if you're not fueling your body properly, you feel it and like you're not as sharp as a gymnast. So she literally sells to parents of like young gymnasts and again is so successful in that. And that's essentially like I don't know if she calls it like her like a private practice or how she works with them behind the scenes. I know she does like coaching and things like that. That's like pretty high touch coaching, but I don't know all the ins and outs there. But it's like same thing. She turned being a dietitian
Okay, Grace's internet went out and she got kicked out of the podcast recording studio. So I think this brings us to the end of today's episode. And I'm so sorry that that conversation got cut a little bit short, but we were wrapping up the end of our outline anyway. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you have any other kind of like examples or things that you've seen on social media of people doing really cool things and starting their business and getting their business marketed through social media, definitely leave them in Spotify. I feel like your comments lately have been so good and very, very cool to read through when you guys are giving your own examples in our comment section on Spotify. So definitely leave them in there. You can also DM us on Instagram at the Life You Love Pod. We love hearing from you guys, but thanks for tuning into the podcast. And until next week.